Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We'll get started with one moment on our special topic today on Lunch and Learn, stress relief. Once again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jody, and I am the Adult Research Programmer at the Fredericksburg branch. It is my privilege today to once again introduce April Payne, who is the Family and Consumer Service Extension Agent at the Virginia Cooperative Extension. She has done several of these with us before, and they've all been excellent. So, April, thank you once again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I know I should have probably spelled it out. It's FCS is Family Consumer Sciences. So kind of like the Family Consumer Sciences class you took in high school. It's the same sort of facts teacher, but I'm an extension agent. So I teach research-based programs throughout the community from Virginia Tech and Virginia State universities. And I'm super excited to be here to talk to you all about stress and stress relief. So obviously the title here is about stress, but it's also about how to relieve stress. So I'm going to talk about what is stress. So we're going to have some objectives here. So we're going to talk about what is stress. We're going to talk about chronic stress and types of stress, stress signals, also techniques to overcome stress. What is it? Stress is basically two types of stressors here. So we have acute stress and we have chronic stress. Acute stress, believe it or not, is actually kind of healthy for us. It's actually it's a good thing. It's a natural thing. It's your fight or flight response. It's any situation you perceive as threatening or requires you to adjust to a change. So this could be maybe an exam. This could be a stressful moment like presenting. It could be maybe a really hard conversation you might have to have. So those are natural stressors that are okay. They're natural, they're acute, they're actually good for our body to fluctuate a little bit. So our heart pounds, our muscles tense, breathing quickens, stomach churns a little bit, you might sweat. So that's the acute stress. So that only lasts for maybe about up to a few minutes to a few hours, and this can happen every once in a while. But chronic stress, that's one that is very, very common right now. And that results when stressors and stressful situations persist for a long period of time. Basically, that means 2 weeks or more. If you are under stress, what causes you to maybe be fatigued, maybe have your those symptoms right there of like that heart pounding, the muscles tensioning, quickening of breath often, stomach churning, sweating often. Some of those can be different conditions, of course, but chronic stress is a lot of times maybe brought on by financial problems, relationship problems, work confrontation or conflict, deadlines that are due that okay, so sometimes that's out of our control, but if it's an often thing, that can happen into or that can lead into chronic stress that is really, really, really very not good for our health. So the chronic stress implications here are, of course, going to be some pretty high hitters. We've got high blood pressure. Heart disease can be caused by chronic stress. Dampened immune system. So if you get sick often and you feel like you're stressed, that's probably it's probably coming from that chronic stress. Increased asthma, digestive disorders, cancer. It can lead into causing heightened responses to that feed into the cancer that's growing, and then speed up aging process. I don't know if you've ever seen like the presidents, oftentimes their hair turns white, and that is because of stress. Crazy enough. And it's also a lot of times you'll see the wrinkles in foreheads. Of course, those are characteristics that are fun sometimes, but sometimes it can be brought on by more stress. Perhaps the lines in between your brow where you're frowning often, but also speeds depression. It causes depression, it causes anxiety and addiction, and it can lead to obesity as well. So, common causes, like I was saying, it's frequent illnesses, relationship problems, major life changes, money issues, problems at work, lack of a supportive environment, and lack of healthy outlets of stress. So, we're going to talk about ways that we can overcome these chronic stress conditions. So, as I was saying, we have physical stressors, we have metabolic stressors, and we have physiological stressors. So, physical could be including surgery, it could be repetitive manual labor, over exercising, or fatigue. So, that's physical stressors. And then we have metabolic stressors, include chronic inflammation and hormonal imbalance, exposure to toxins, caloric restrictions, or excessive caloric intake. So those are metabolic stressors. A lot of times we don't necessarily see those, but we can feel that, or we realize we might have a problem with taking in too many calories or restricting too many calories. And hormonal imbalance could be something, as well as chronic inflammation, that we need to see our doctors about. Of course, that's where you need to see a specialist about those certain things, because that is something you may not be able to control on your own. And then we have physiological stressors, including experiences with death, divorce, anxiety due to situations such as public speaking, and exams, perhaps, or stressful circumstances. So, those are things sometimes out of our control, totally out of our control. And they're things that we are faced with throughout life. So, these are physiological stressors, and there's those are kind of ebbs and flows. Those are peaks and valleys that we're going through a lot of times with life. But if you stay in a valley and you don't necessarily see the peak, or it's been a long time since you've gotten to a peak, there's certainly help out there that can help you with that. Because, actually, I think it was just the other day was Mental Health Awareness Day. And stress is something that feeds into our mental health. So it's really, really important to consider factors that are leading into perhaps chronic stress. But like I said, acute stress is pretty healthy. It's something that happens, the ebbs and flows, right? So you have to think you've got peaks and valleys, but if you're in a valley and there's no hope of a peak, seeking help and dealing with stress is a very healthy way to handle it. And we'll talk about some ways to do that. So, some stress signals here: feelings of anxiety, irritability, fear, moodiness, and embarrassment. So, thoughts could be self criticism. So, we always talk about flip the script and talk positive about yourself. It's really very true. But those thoughts can lead into those stressors. Difficulty can concentrating or making decisions, forgetfulness, preoccupation with the future or even the past, repetitive thoughts, and fear of failure. And we have behaviors. So, crying, increased or decreased appetite, snapping at friends or family, acting impulsively, alcohol or drug use, including smoking, nervous laughter, teeth grinding or jaw clenching, and stuttering or other speech difficulties, and being more accident prone. So, those are some behaviors that signal stressors. And then we have physical. So, when it's tough to sleep, when it's hard to sleep. Sometimes that's due to stress, and then tight muscles, headaches, fatigue, cold or sweaty hands, so those clammy hands, and then back or neck problems, stomach distress, more colds and infections, so that low immune system, rapid breathing, a pounding heart, trembling, and dry mouth. So these are stress signals, and yes, they happen every once in a while. That's okay. But some of these things can happen over time more often. So if it's more than 2 weeks that you are having really tense muscles, or you're crying often, or you have anxiety about a situation, and or self-criticism, if you're talking badly about yourself often, or perhaps not sleeping well consecutively, or maybe you're snapping at people pretty often. Those are things that you want to take into consideration. So, a lot of this is being self aware of the symptoms that are going on, and being self reflective of your environment and what's going on. And then we have some techniques. This is where we get into how do we do the stress relief. So, we talked about the stressors. Now, what are the techniques here to help with this? A big one, exercise. Even just walking, just a walk can decrease your stress significantly, significantly. And any physical activity helps to increase breathing or relieve muscle tension. Mindfulness and meditation. There are some fantastic free resources out there for mindfulness. And this is just perhaps sitting just still for 5 minutes. And there's even walking mindfulness activities that you can practice. So there's a variety of things: Tai Chi, breathing, and mental focus. I don't know if you've ever tried Tai Chi, but it is fantastic. I highly recommend it. It's actually surprisingly relaxing, because you're focusing on the movements and the different sections of your body, and it's actually really, really calming. Breathing, when stressed, we breathe out of our chest. So I'll never forget, somebody asked me to breathe for them, and I was like, okay. So I breathed in, and they saw my chest expand, and they're like, you are breathing wrong. I'm like, what? So it is true. When you are, especially around here, we have stressful drives, many of us. Belly breathing is a fantastic way to relieve stress. So breathing into your belly versus our chest. This is a fight or flight reaction, breathing into our chest. Belly breathing is relaxing our nervous system. So our parasympathetic nervous system, we're relaxing that. And breathing from our belly can counter that reaction by activating the body's relaxing response and reducing the heart rate and blood pressure. It's so true. So try it. There's also square breathing. I don't know if you've heard that one. I've heard it referred to a few times in some shows and stuff recently, but square breathing is a count to 4, or however you want to do it. But basically, it's breathing in for a count, holding for a count, breathing out for a count, holding for a count, breathe in, breathe out, and hold, breathe out, hold, breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold. So it's square breathing. And that's a fantastic way to help stress as well, to help to relieve stress. And then forgiveness. Hanging on to negative feelings can do more harm than health. So that's something that's a lot of self-reflection, but forgiveness can really help with stress, and especially chronic stress over time, the relationships that cause stress in our lives. But just forgive and forget that. Well, I should say forgive, but don't forget, actually. So if you can forget, that's wonderful. But a lot of times, what we can do is just work through forgiving someone, but don't forget what happened to us, so that we don't make that mistake again. And there's yoga is a fantastic way. It's a combination of, it's a great way to relieve stress. It's a combination of exercise, relaxation, physical fitness, and meditation. So mindfulness practice. It helps lower blood pressure, improves sleep, and dampen the artery damaged inflammation. So it can help with inflammation too. But basically, it's just a really great way to kind of relax through getting into your feeling of yourself, like what's going on, what can you relax in your body. There's stretching, there's balance, there's mobility factors in yoga, so it's a fantastic way. And there's a fantastic way to reduce stress, but there's so many resources out there that are free and also fantastic wonderful classes that you can pay for. So there's great resources out there just to give it a try, just to even try it. And the quality of sleep is something, really, 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 really trending right now, which is wonderful, trying to help with the quality of sleep. But not enough sleep can increase this stress hormone cortisol. And so limit the screen time to 2 hours before bed. Now, that means do not look at your screen for 2 hours before you go to bed. Do I live by that? I try to, but sometimes that's a little difficult. But that is true. So, not looking at your screen when you're going to bed. Even, these Kindles are fantastic, but they do give off a bit of blue light. But if you can read or just limit your screen time, just don't look at the screen when you're trying to go to bed because the blue light is what's making our brain active and we can't get to sleep. And have a routine for bedtime and wake up time. So routines are very important. It's called a circadian rhythm. And so that sleep time is very important, and our sleep affects our entire outlook on health here too. I mean, our sleep impacts so much more than what we think. So it's really important. Food choices. So, too many processed foods can cause inflammation. Too much sugar or caffeine can cause fatigue or crashing. And have breakfast. Breakfast is very important. I think it's actually the most important meal of the day. And then stay hydrated. That's a big one. So, it helps your skin, it helps your organs function, staying hydrated with water. And also social support. So support is a very big part of this too. So having friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, relatives, spouses, companions all provide life-enhancing social network and may increase longevity. So a lot of this you'll see is talking about the dimensions of wellness. There's 6 dimensions, 8 dimensions, 11 dimensions. I don't know. There's tons of different numbers of dimensions, but basically it's talking about social, physical, environmental, financial, and I can't remember the rest, but right off the bat. But this is talking about your dimensions of wellness, and these all come together and balance. So you might have something out of balance, but all throughout life, we're working to try to balance those dimensions. And then it's real important too to think if you don't have the social support necessarily, like there was a situation where I had a conflict and I exhausted my resources within my friends and family, and I decided, I needed I needed to look outside of that. So I did reach out to someone as a professional to help me deal with the conflict that I was faced with. So sometimes we have to seek professionals to help with that social support too, of someone that we can talk to, because that's where journaling can help as well. As long as you're getting your feelings out is the important part. And then time management. Ooh, boy, can that help with stress. So don't overcommit yourself. Learn to say yes, but you don't have to say no. You can say, yes, but I need to do this at a different time, or yes, but I need to delegate that to someone else. So don't overcommit yourself. Don't have poor time management. There's a lot of fantastic resources out there that can help you trigger or pinpoint what is your bad time management's trigger points there, and then plan ahead. Make a list. Do one thing at a time, and prioritize. So that's all very important. Know your limits. So ask yourself, is this my problem? That's really important. Self reflection, right? So, is this my problem? If it isn't, leave it alone. That's really hard to do. And if it is, identify what you can do to address it now. And once it's settled, leave it alone and don't agonize over the decision. That's tough to do too sometimes. Seek out a compromise. So if you can't agree, seek out a compromise. Do other people upset you? Often they do, right? Particularly when they don't do things the way that you like. Consider cooperation or compromise rather than confrontation. A little give and take on both sides may reduce the strain and help you both feel more comfortable. So that especially goes for like maybe a friendship or work or working with people on something. Certainly think about that and reflect on that. Can you compromise? And have a good cry. Sometimes it's just really nice to have a good cry. It can help relieve anxiety and it may prevent headaches. Actually, I feel like sometimes it causes them for me, but sometimes it's just really nice to have a good cry rather than physically bottling things up. And this could be just go off alone or, have a good cry with a friend. But look at the positive. That's another thing. Like I was saying, flip the script. Try to talk positive about yourself, about the outlook. It's easy to see things in a negative way, and that can stress us out even more. So actively try to notice the positive moments to raise your energy and spirits. And so these are some references if you are interested in learning a little more. That's my contact information, ARPAYNE at vt.edu. And yeah, we have some great resources through Virginia Cooperative Extension. I took a lot from the Taking Charge of Your Health and Well-Being. It's a fantastic resource. And the Mind and Body Defining Stress. So that's another really great one. But if you have any questions, certainly reach out.
Yes, once again, thank you, April, for doing this today. I think we all learned something about managing our stress, and hopefully we can all go into this holiday season not being as stressed out. Again,
Yes.
Please contact April or contact the library if you would like us to get you in touch with April. Once again, thank you for coming today, April.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. I hope everyone has a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you, and please join us again for our next Lunch and Learn.